Most journeys end when the train stops. Passengers step off, blend into the morning crowd, and whatever happened during the night slowly fades into memory. But sometimes, a single conversation refuses to disappear. It stays with you, quietly, persistently, like a question that was never fully answered. This is what happened after the train arrived. Before we continue with this night story, we want to say thank you. Smart Love Tales continues to grow because of you. Every person who listens to this story, every likes, every comment, it's truly mean a lot to us. Even if you have been here for a while, or this is your first time listening, thank you for being here tonight. The station moved with its usual rhythm. Footsteps, announcements, the soft hum of early morning life beginning again. Adrian stepped onto the platform and paused for a moment. The air felt different from the night before. Lighter, clearer, but something else lingered. The conversation. It replayed in fragments. Her voice, her questions, the way time had seemed to slow between them. Across the platform, Elena disappeared into the crowd. No dramatic farewell, no exchange of numbers, just a simple goodbye and two separate directions. That should have been the end, but it wasn't. The city Adrian arrived in was unfamiliar. Tall buildings, wide streets, endless movement, people walking quickly with places to be. He checked into a small apartment near the center of the city, unpacked his bag, placed his belongings carefully on a narrow desk, then sat down. For the first time since leaving the train, there was silence. No movement, no conversation, just stillness. And in that stillness, her words returned. If you could start over tomorrow, what would you do differently? The question had followed him off the train, and now it stayed with him. Days passed. Adrian explored the city. New streets, new routines, new places that slowly began to feel familiar. But something about his days felt unfinished, as if the journey had not fully ended. One evening, as the sun set behind the buildings, he found himself standing near another train station, not the one he arrived at, a different one, quieter, less crowded. He watched the trains come and go, passengers stepping on, passengers stepping off, each one carrying their own story forward. And for the first time, Adrian realized something simple. Journeys are not always about arriving somewhere. Sometimes they are about choosing whether to continue. At that same hour, in another part of the city, Elena stood near a window. Her apartment overlooked a quiet street. The evening light reflected softly against the glass. She had unpacked her bag, placed her book on a small table, arranged her space with careful attention. But like Adrian, she felt the quiet after the journey, the absence of conversation, the sudden stillness. And like him, she remembered. Not every word, just certain moments, certain questions, the feeling of being understood by someone who had known her for only a few hours. Life has a way of rebuilding itself quickly. New routines form, new habits take shape. Adrian found a small cafe near his apartment. He visited it each morning, ordered the same drink, sat by the window, watched the street. Elena found a quiet bookstore. She spent her evenings there, reading, writing, allowing the hours to pass slowly. They lived separate lives, in the same city, unaware of how close they had come to crossing paths again. A week passed, then another. One evening, as Adrian sat in the cafe, he opened a notebook, something he had not done in years. He began to write, not about work, not about plans, just thoughts, simple reflections, fragments of ideas that had stayed with him since the train. Across the city, Elena did the same. In the quiet corner of the bookstore, she opened her notebook and wrote. Both of them, without knowing it, had begun answering the same question, in their own way. There are moments in life when two paths almost cross again, not by design, just by timing. One afternoon, Adrian passed by the bookstore. He paused for a second, considering whether to step inside, but he kept walking. That same day, Elena left the bookstore earlier than usual. She walked past the cafe Adrian visited each morning. She glanced through the window, then continued down the street. They came close, but not close enough. It happened on a quiet evening, the kind where the city slows slightly, where the air feels still. Adrian returned to the station, the same quiet one he had visited before, not to travel, just to sit, to watch the trains again, to feel that sense of movement, of possibility. At the same time, Elena arrived at the same station, from a different entrance. She carried her notebook, and for a moment she hesitated, as if unsure why she had come. Then she stepped onto the platform. The station was not crowded. Only a few passengers waited. A train stood idle on the track, doors open, lights glowing softly inside. Adrian looked up and saw her. At first, he wasn't certain. Then she turned slightly, and recognition settled in. Not sudden, not dramatic, just quiet, certain. Elena saw him a moment later and smiled, the same way she had on the train, familiar, calm, as if the time between their last meeting had simply folded into the present. They stood there for a moment, no rush, no urgency, just the quiet understanding that something had brought them back to the same place. Adrian spoke first. "Another journey?" he asked. Elena looked towards the train, then back at him. "Maybe," she said, "but not the same kind." The train doors remained open. Passengers began to board, but this time, neither of them moved immediately. Because for the first time, the journey didn't feel like something that needed to be taken alone. The train eventually departed, but whether they boarded it or stayed behind was not the most important part of the story. What mattered was this. Two people who met once between night and morning found their way back to each other without searching. Because sometimes the path forward is not about where you go next. It is about who you meet along the way and whether you choose to continue the journey together. And somewhere in the distance, another train moved quietly through the night, carrying new passengers towards their own unanswered questions.